Hey everybody, Jake back again, and today I'm going to be doing an Earth Machine deck profile for my first deck profile of 2021, and I have a lot of other decks that I've built, and I'm excited to show you those, but I'm going to start with something that I've already done, just because, one, this is one of my favorite decks, and two, kind of ease myself in back to trying to do deck profiles with something familiar. So let's hop into it. First things first, we are running 3 copies of Harvester. Harvester is one of the 12 starters in our deck. We have 3 of this, and this thing can search Brutal Dozer, which is all we really want it to do, but it can also level modulate, and it is one of the 2 monster starters that can actually summon it. It can be normal summoned after turn 1. So this thing is overall pretty versatile and can even hard make Zeus. We run 3 Brutal Dozer because this deck isn't called Dozer Control for nothing. This thing is the core of our strategy. We want to have this. And although opening it in a vacuum seems terrible, there's a lot of hand traps out there that will probably stop your starter, so being able to just play anyways is really good. So opening this is not bad. 2 copies of Trencher. Trencher, people drop this to 1 for some reason, even though it's such a good card at 2, because it makes you less reliant on your overdrive. Because having another one of these in deck means that you're more than likely going to be able to search this, and this will give your deck some more resiliency. 1 copy of Tunneler. Tunneler is Pot of Avarice, basically. That's all it is. We can recycle this thing with Pot of the mini Pot of Avarice in Overdrive. So this just makes our Tunneler an incredible draw power tool. 1 copy of Anchor Drill. I tried 2 for a little bit, but I found that using it in the opening was just not as good as using it in the follow-up, because, well, this just made me a little more reliant on the normal summon, which I do not want. Because if this gets Veilered, then I summon nothing. But if I had to summon Harvester, it got ashed, I can at least use its level modulation effect or get it in the grave to add it back. But this, not really the best to use turn 1. For the Machinas, we are running 3 copies of the Metal Cruncher. Cruncher's our other starter. It's basically just meant to be another Harvester, although it is more versatile in one way than Harvester, and that is I can search any Earth Machine. Although you have to pick 3 and randomly get one, if you run 3 of it in your deck and you haven't drawn any yet, then it's just guaranteed, which usually this is what happens with Brutal Dozer. And if you draw Brutal Dozer when you open this thing, you can search for trains, which means that you can end on a Dora. Or if you're going second, you can go ahead and OTK. 1 copy of Fortress. I dropped this down to 1 because I found that I like more flexibility in my deck rather than just opening Fortress more. It's very rare you're going to use 3 redeployments, and if you open multiple redeployments, you're most likely just going to discard the other redeployment to search for Overdrive. So really, having 1 Fortress is just fine. And the last Machina monster in our deck is Machina Citadel. It's Regeki on legs, and when one of your Earth Machines dies, it comes back. That is all you need to know. For the trains, 2 copies of Dare Crane. Dare Crane is very solid and is definitely the one that you should run more of than Bullet Train, and that's just because this thing chain blocks and gives you a pop. And with Bullet Train, it only has a once per turn on its add back effect, so getting multiple copies of it doesn't really help. Meanwhile, multiple copies of this is definitely helpful. So if you I'm going to show you a card that you can potentially take out later on, and that will let you play a 3rd Dare Crane if you really want, or another Fortress or another Anchor Drill. I wouldn't suggest Bullet Train because there's no benefit to having more Bullet Trains, but there is a benefit to having more Dare Cranes. Speaking of Bullet Train, 1 Bullet Train, We only need the one. You search this off a River Stormer, and then you can summon it, and this just is part of our resource loop. We run one copy of Ancient Gearbox. Worst and best card in the deck at the same time. Like, if you draw it, it is the worst card in the deck, but if you don't draw it and you search it, oh my god, it is amazing, because this is the core of the resource loop. You would use Anger Knuckles effect to revive Bullet Train, kill Bullet Train, end phase, add back box. And you could send the box off of the Anger Knuckle to get it back in the graveyard, and then every time you would get your box back, you just get to search again. This thing is crazy when you get to do that. But drawing this thing really sucks, because you have to do this really flimsy combo just to shuffle it back. And then if you draw it, well, yeah, it sucks. For hand traps, I am running 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Springs. I don't think I need to explain why I'm running this. It's just a solid card. It's $20 for a reason. 3 Veiler. I'm thinking of playing Mourner over this, but I'm not too sure. And that's it for the monsters. Let's hop into the spells. For the spells, we are running 3 copies of Redeployment. This is definitely the best starter in the entire deck. It has the highest ceiling. This card alone gives you a rank 9 combo. And also, it is definitely the best Ash bait as well. Like, if there's anything your opponent is going to stop you from getting, it's Redeployment. They do not want you getting those pluses. 3 heavy forward. This thing is just Rhoda for Infinitrax. You use it to get Harvester, or if you kept this in your hand, you normal summon something, like Metal Cruncher or Harvester, and then it gets negated. You can just use this to search Dozer, which is actually pretty nice. And this thing also has the effect where it can attach itself as Xyz material, which will come up later. 2 copies of Urgent Schedule. Urgent Schedule is pretty solid as a going second card. I only play 2 because, I mean, I don't want to open multiples of it, but I like opening it. You can actually do an OTK with this in a starter, where you use Ancient Gear Ballista's effect to 0 an opponent's monster's attack, and then you search a train. So this card's actually pretty good. And that's it for the spells. For the traps, I am running 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. This is just a really good trap card. I'm glad that's finally around the $10 mark. That has been something I never thought would happen, which is kind of crazy. Like, we've come a long way. 2 Overdrive. This is interesting. I'm trying this out. I took out an Overdrive and the extra extender with like the second anchor drill or the second fortress for one more card in this deck. But yeah, I think that this card, it's good. It's really good, but it's searchable off of your redeployment, and due to how much we thin out our deck, it is incredibly likely you're going to get a copy of this thing one way or another. We don't need to open Overdrive in order to live. Like, we're a toolbox deck. We have more than just one option. And finally, this is what I took out in Overdrive and the extra card for. 2 Torrential. This has high synergy because it triggers your Citadel, and it board wipes. So basically you can do 2 board wipes in one with Torrential and having Citadel in the grave. Also, this is not once per turn, so if you draw multiples of it, congratulations, you get to board wipe your opponent multiple times. That's it for the main deck. Let's hop into the extra deck. We have 1 copy of River Stormer. You'll be using this card turn after turn because it can just pop a Goliath and bring itself back and then attach the Goliath. So this thing will just keep coming back, so you don't need any more of it. 1 Dingirsu. This is one of the most common things I use in the follow-up because it's non-targeting, non-destructive removal, and protection for my Earth machines, or can recycle instead of removing something. So this is definitely a good card, although the one issue with it is that it's not Earth, it's dark. But, I mean, as long as you don't summon Dozer when you're trying to make this, you're fine. Like, after you make it, you can summon Dozer as much as you like. One, Earth Slicer. Earth Slicer's definitely a card I'm starting to utilize a little more in my OTKs because it just shreds your opponent's board. And it can also... It's big. And it can steal your opponent's cards to get Xyz materials, which can come up. And then one, Enter Blasnir. If you get Machina Redeployment, most likely you're going to try and do the rank 9 combo, which summons this thing, which is... It's good, but... most of the time you're not going to be able to do that. It's a little bit more frail of a combo. It's still good if you can do it, but just know that it's a little more fragile of a combo. One, Dora. If you open a train in your hand, most likely you're going to end on a Dora on top of your normal board, which Dora gives you an interruption thanks to Daracrane. And that's pretty solid, and it can protect your cards, which also is pretty solid. One copy of Gustav. This is just for the OTK, which I should warn you, don't do the OTK unless you are absolutely sure you will win. If you have any doubts that the OTK won't work, don't do it, because then in order to do it again, you have to use your Tunneler to shuffle back 3 cards, or you have to use your Overdrive. So you have to waste a lot just to get your OTK back, and you're going to have to shuffle back a Daracrane or 2, which really sucks. You don't want that. And this is one of the best cards in the deck, Lieb. It is definitely one heck of a card. You just stack your Gustav into this, and if your opponent has multiple monsters, they're probably dead. Or if you zeroed out one of your opponent's monster's attack points with Ancient Gear Ballista and you get this out, then they're dead. And then finally, I finally have a copy of it since the tins kindly reprinted this thing. I have a Zeus now. Zeus... I keep forgetting that I have this in my deck for some reason. I find that people rely on this thing too much in their Earth Machine builds, but... Like, the card's good, but it's not the core of your deck. Like, this thing's not something you should rely on. Because we have Citadel, which is basically Zeus. And we have Earth Slicer, which can also basically be Zeus. We have a lot of cards that take care of our opponent's cards. This is like a last resort. Which is also why I don't play the Thunder Charger in this deck, because I don't go into Zeus very often, and when I do, I really don't feel like that the extra material matters, because I have Goliaths and Heavy Forwards to use to attach to Zeus. And that's it for the Xyz monsters. For the links, we are running one copy of Cleafort Genius. Genius is pretty good. There's just some decks that can't out this thing for some reason. Like, it's unaffected by link monsters and spells and traps. So, Eldritch, no. Tri-Brigade, as long as it's not Lyrilisk variant, yeah, like, they can't banish this thing off of Shuregg. Maybe they could beat over it, but this thing's just awkward. And with an Urgent Schedule, this thing gets really nuts because you can activate Urgent Schedule, summon 2 here and here, and then just search. It is actually a pretty nuts card. 2 copies of Anger Knuckle. You can take out one for the Thunder Charger if you want. I don't know what I'd want to replace. I definitely don't want Photon Lord because the thing's not even a machine, which is a big problem. And also, by the time you even make it, which is turn 2, like, there's no reason to have it anymore. Like, there's no use for that Omni Negate. Plus, we're getting an Omni Negate pretty soon in the new Therian archetype, so I don't think it'd be necessary to run Photon Lord. So you can easily just take this out for, like, the Thunder Charger. 1 Ancient Gear Ballista. Ballista's pretty solid. It can help OTK, actually, and you mainly just use it to search box, but that effect where you can send a spell or trap you control to the grave in order to zero out an opponent's attack points actually comes up. And 3 Goliath. Yes, you need all 3 of these. This is not only good for just turn after turn using the Goliath to get your River Stormer back, or you can even use it to get a pop off of Earth Slicer, but also you use all 3 in your opening combo and shuffle them back with Tunneler so you can draw more cards and dig deeper into your deck. That's it for the extra deck. Let's hop into my current build of the side deck. This is where I'll definitely take suggestions because this is the part I'm most unsure on. So feel free to suggest anything. I'm running 3 Lancia because Tri-Brigade, it just kills that deck. And I think it can kill Sword Soul. I can't remember. I played against the Dogmata variant of the deck and it was actually kind of fun. But, I think that this definitely works against the Tenyi variant, because the Tenyis need to banish themselves in order to do stuff. 3 Forbidden Chalice. This is a good card. I used to just play Dark Ruler no more, but I found that Dark Ruler just restricted me and prevented me from OTKing, when most of the time I just want to stop one thing, which is the opponent's Omni Negate. And and Dark Ruler is a normal spell. You can't like activate something and then chain Dark Ruler to the Omni Negate. They can try to negate my thing, and I can chain Chalice to negate their negate, which is actually pretty solid. Then we run 3 Cosmic Cyclone, back row matchups. I don't think I need to explain anymore. 2 Ice Dragon's Prison. Due to the 2-ofs in the deck, I think having the 2-ofs in the side's pretty good, and I like Ice Dragon's Prison because it can take out some pretty key cards in a lot of decks, like going against Drytron. Not really much Tri-Brigade, but the Lyrilusk part, it can definitely take out that. Taking out 2 cards from Lyrilusk is definitely pretty powerful, and also against Sword Soul, it can also work. 2 EMR, probably the most cuttable card in the deck. I'm not too sure on it anymore. Like, I liked the card, it was fun, but I find myself never using this thing. Like, yes, it's good against back row, but this is really just it's just Earth Slicer and a trap card, basically. You know, you pop a card, pop a heck ton more. The only time you ever really want to flip this up is when you have a Bullet Train on the field, so you get Bullet Train engraved, and then you can destroy 3 cards. Like, yes, that's pretty high ceiling, but we have enough cards that require Earth Machines to be on the field already. We don't need another. So I want to replace this card with something, and it needs to be a 2-of. And then finally, 2 copies of Dimensional Barrier. I think this card's good. I think it's actually good this format. It kills Lyrilusk Tri-Brigade because haha no Xyz summoning, and it kills Sword Soul because haha no Synchro summoning, and it kills Drytron because haha no Ritual summoning. This card's actually pretty good against the top decks, and I think it's an underrated card. That is the entire deck. I hope you enjoyed the deck profile, and I will see you next time.